9 spine-chilling new house tales, sinister secrets revealed that sparked terrifying nightmares. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was off the moment she stepped inside. The air felt thick, suffocating almost, as if history whispered around her. By all appearances, the house should have been a dream, a 2-story gem in a sleepy suburb of Chicago, with crisp white shutters and a manicured lawn. But the price had been shockingly low, and a nagging sense of dread nestled in her gut. What did I just do? She thought, pushing aside her doubts, determined to create a happy home for her 7-year-old son, Ben. Outside, the neighbors watched with unnerving stillness, as if the very walls around them had eyes. As Lisa unpacked boxes in the dim light of the living room, the sounds of the suburb settled into a familiar rhythm, the soft flutter of leaves, the distant laughter of children. Yet when the sun dipped below the horizon, a different kind of sound emerged. Creaks echoed through the hallways like ghostly whispers, sending chills down her spine. She paused, instincts screaming, heart racing, but Ben remained oblivious, lost in his toy animals. It's just the house settling, she lied to herself. But in the darkness, shadows lengthened, twisting and curling into forms that shouldn't exist. Then there were the portraits. Lisa noticed them hanging crookedly on the walls, dust caking their edges. The faces smiled blandly, but their eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. A knot tightened in her stomach. She couldn't shake the suspicion that the previous owners hadn't left willingly. Whispers from her neighbors reached her in the park, hushed warnings wrapped in flimsy smiles. The last family just left. She could feel their fearful gazes and knew then that they were hiding something. One day, Ben rushed home, breathless and giddy. "Mom! I made a friend!" His eyes sparkled with excitement, but Lisa felt a deep unease. "Who is he?" she asked. "Mark. He lives next door. He said he knows a secret." A chill cascaded through her. "What kind of secret, Ben?" Her hands trembled as Ben recounted tales of the Keeper, a creature that supposedly ensured the neighborhood stayed safe, but hid sinister truths beneath its watchful gaze. Every mention of this entity made her heart race, each word plummeting her into deeper dread. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, as the sky turned an ominous shade of dark gray, Ben's laughter rang hollow in the air. Lisa's stomach twisted when the doorbell chimed, breaking the unsettling calm. She opened it to find a neighbor she barely knew, their smile oddly sharp and too wide. "Just wanted to check in on you and Ben," they chirped, words sweet but dripping with something sinister. "You know how it is, important to know who really lives next door." The glint in their eyes sent her pulse racing. Shadows darkened in the corners of her home. She felt them creeping closer with each second, wrapping around her like an icy shroud. In that moment, the creeping terror collapsed into an overwhelming realization. They weren't alone in this neighborhood, not by a long shot. Something was watching, and the nightmares were only just beginning. The next morning, gray clouds hung low over the house, as if the sky were pressing down on them, heavy and ominous. Ben was buzzing with excitement about his new friend. "Can we go play with Mark today, Mom?" he begged, eyes wide and hopeful. A knot twisted in Lisa's stomach. She glanced out the window, scanning the street as if it were a scene from a horror movie, the silence thick and suffocating. "Maybe later," she replied, trying to mask her hesitation. There was an instinct deep down that screamed for her to keep Ben close, but she didn't want to dampen his spirit. As the day wore on, her uneasiness transformed into a pervasive dread. Driving Ben to school felt like navigating through a fog where her mind was clouded with fear. What secrets lay hidden in the seemingly perfect suburb? Each house seemed to leer, peering back at her with eyes full of dark histories. Whispers of the last family, their disappearance hanging like a ghostly specter, were now planted firmly in her brain. The school gate, she caught sight of Mark under the sprawling oak tree. He was a skinny kid with dark hair and an unsettling grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Your mom says you can't come out to play." He pointed a finger, teasing Ben, but Lisa felt the words cut through her. In a flurry, she knelt beside Ben. "Why don't we just head home?" she said, the smile on her face faltering. But Ben whined, "But I want to play." His voice cracked, frustration building like a storm. Lisa looked at Mark, who was still grinning, amused by their little drama. What were these children laughing about in a place where laughter felt so unnatural? By the time they got home, gray shadows began creeping back as night approached. Shadows stretched and twisted in every corner, the air thickening with an unseen presence. It was as if the house breathed around her, reminding her that it was alive, a vessel of horrors yet to be revealed. That evening, as Ben went to bed, Lisa sat on the edge of his bed, watching his eyes flutter, slipping into slumber. Laughter wafted through the window, a faint echo of children playing outside. It made her heart race. She opened his window wider, wanting the fresh night air to fill the room. But the laughter turned to a shrill shout that pierced through the calm. "Help! Help!" The terror surged through her veins. Racing outside in her pajamas, Lisa felt as if the shadows were tugging at her, urging her back. She stumbled onto the porch, squinting into the night. The whispering wind seemed to carry the sound, and she followed it, heart pounding. It guided her down the darkened street, where she saw Mark standing alone under the street lamp, eyes wide and unblinking. "Where's Ben?" she gasped, her voice trembling. "Ben can't come out to play," he replied softly, but there was something hidden in his tone, something sinister. Before she could reply, the streetlight flickered ominously, casting baleful shadows over Mark's face. "Yes," with the keeper, Mark finished, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent icy dread through Lisa's spine. "And once the keeper claims them, they disappear suddenly." The ground trembled beneath her feet. The laughter grew, swirling into an inhuman chorus, drowning out her panic. She looked at Mark, but he wasn't smiling anymore. His expression was vague, as if a new understanding washed over him and wrapped them both in the horror of what was becoming. And then the shadows stirred. The night felt alive, hungry and waiting. What had she opened in this cursed neighborhood? In that moment, Lisa knew they were never really alone. But the question loomed in the dark: who else had drawn the keeper's attention? The night thickened, wrapping itself around Lisa like a dark shroud. She could barely breathe as her heart raced, pounding like a drum in a horror film. The shadows seemed to whisper secrets as they danced, weaving through trees with limbs like skeletal fingers, threatening to touch her, to pull her in. "Mark!" she screamed, her voice breaking, panic washing over her. "What do you mean? Ben is with the keeper." "Where is he?" Mark's eyes glinted, reflecting the dim light like a predator poised to strike. "He's where he belongs," he said, each word heavy with a dreadful finality. "You should go home, or you might end up lost too." The words twisted in the air like smoke, and Lisa felt the bite of fear grip her throat. The laughter that seemed innocent moments ago morphed into something grotesque, a chilling sound that echoed down the empty street. It echoed her terror, taunting her with its mockery. "Help!" she called again, but her voice was swallowed by the oppressive weight of the night. Mark stepped backward, fading into the shadows, leaving Lisa alone at the edge of the street. She turned, desperation clawing at her. She couldn't just walk away. Her child was out there somewhere, in the grip of something terrible. The keeper had taken him, and what was once a neighborhood of laughter was now a crypt of lost children. Lisa dashed past the flickering streetlight, every crack and creak underfoot reverberating like a warning bell. The world around her transformed into a maze. Familiar houses became monstrous silhouettes, their darkened windows like hollow eyes watching her helplessly. She was entering a realm where the normal rules didn't apply, where shadows grew fangs and whispered her name. "Ben!" she cried, desperation mounting as she sprinted toward the oak tree, the place where he had met Mark. The shadows seemed to reach out, tugging at her sleeves. Was this the keeper's doing? "Ben, I'm coming for you." Suddenly, the laughter surged again, but this time it was joined by a chorus of whispers, hoarse voices that seemed to echo from the very depths of the earth. They weren't just children anymore. They churned together, a ghastly symphony of lost souls. "Help us, join us," they coaxed, their tones syrupy sweet yet infused with malice. She stumbled into the small clearing beneath the oak, breathless. What should have been a comforting spot felt ominous. The branches above twisted as if animated by a darkness beyond the pale of human comprehension. And there, at the foot of the tree, lay an old, gnarled book half buried in the dirt. Its leather cover looked ancient, worn from time and neglect. She hesitated, her instincts screaming to turn back, to run, but she couldn't leave without Ben. She reached for the book, brushing off the dirt as she flipped it open. Spidery letters scrawled across the yellowed pages described rights, pacts with the keeper. Each word summoned terror, seeping into her skin. A shadow darted behind her. She turned sharply, heart racing anew. "Ben?" A cold wind whipped through the clearing, and for a terrifying moment she thought she saw him, a small figure standing just beyond reach, his eyes like dark wells, shallow and empty. "Mom!" he cried, but the voice was distorted, as if the keeper was already molding Ben into one of those whispers. "Help us!" The ground rumbled once more, and the laughter grew louder, surrounding her like a cage. The keeper was near, entangling them in its web of darkness. "What have you done to my son?" she yelled, desperation fueling her. "Hurry, Mom!" Ben's voice echoed again, now pleading, but before she could move, a shadow surged from the depths of the trees, a shapeless mass emerging gradually, hungry and eternal. It reached for her, its tendrils beckoning. Suddenly, Lisa felt cold grips around her arms drag her back. The book slipped from her grasp, the pages flipping wildly, and in the darkness, Mark's laughter rang, twisted and cruel. As the keeper loomed closer, the world faded into darkness, and Lisa realized she was losing everything. What was the truth hidden in the spine-chilling words? Would Ben be lost forever? In that moment, she understood escape meant unraveling the very fabric of the cursed neighborhood itself. But at what cost? Would she dare confront the keeper and risk the only light left in her life? The weight of shadows swirled around Lisa like a panic-stricken fog, clouding her senses. She was suffocating, grasping for panic amidst the chaos. The voices of lost children slithered through the air, tickling her ears with a seductive horror. The shadows beckoned, whispering secrets that curled around her ankles, pulling her down. "Ben!" she cried again, her voice cracking. It was a desperate plea that reverberated through the night, swallowed by the ever-thickening darkness. She could almost feel the keeper's breath, fetid and stale, wrapping around her, stifling her courage. Lisa stumbled as the darkness quivered and changed, each gust of cold wind carrying the laughter of children who were no longer children. "Help us, join us," they called again, voices twisting together, each word clawed with longing and despair. They were lost forever, begging her to plunge into their abyss. The clearing spun around her as panic clawed at her throat. She looked for the book, her last chance to understand, to fight back. Its pages lay fluttering on the ground like wounded birds, each line dripping with ancient, cursed knowledge. She ran forward, heart pounding, but when she reached for it, something cold seized her wrist, a grip of ice, threatening to pull her into the very darkness she feared. "Let me go!" she screamed, but the echoes of her words seemed to taunt her. Time twisted in on itself, moments compressed into a single breath. And in that breath, Lisa felt Ben's presence fragile and slipping. The keeper emerged from the shadows, towering and vague, like a nightmare drawn by a child. It had no face, yet she could sense its gaze boring into her. "You seek your son?" it rasped, a voice made of thunder and gravel, shaking the very ground. "You will pay the price for his return. Take me," she begged, feeling the hollow space in her chest where hope flickered weakly. "Just let my son go." A cruel laugh erupted from the keeper, deep, resonant, and merciless. "You know not what you ask. The price is steep, a morsel of your soul in exchange for your son's laughter." The laughter rolled around her again, brushing against her skin like icy tendrils. The children's faces appeared in the wind, joyous and yet twisted, joy tainted by despair. No longer did they beckon, Now they surrounded her, figures that promised contentment if she would just let go of everything. "No!" Lisa shouted. A flicker of defiance ignited in her heart. She pulled away from the icy grip, and the shadows recoiled. The ancient book lay in the moonlight, a beacon amidst the approaching night. She dove for it, heart racing. This was her last hope. She fumbled the pages open to the last entry. An illustration, a sigil drawn in chaos, surrounded by phrases that seemed to glow with cursed promise. The air crackled as she traced the sigil with trembling fingers. Understanding bloomed amidst the chaos. This is the barrier," she murmured, a lifeline forged from fear. But darkness engulfed her once more, shadows clawing at her waist, pulling her toward the abyss. Ben's voice echoed, sharper now, "Mom! Please!" With a surge of desperation, Lisa shouted the words she'd read, the sigil burning in her skin. An unseen force jolted as the keeper howled, the sound reverberating through the trees, waking the long-forgotten horrors of the night. In the chaos, something shifted, a flicker of light at the edge of the clearing, a glimmer that pierced the darkness. Was it Ben? Or was the keeper luring her deeper into oblivion? Teetering between hope and despair, Lisa grasped the book tighter, heart pounding, preparing for whatever awaited just beyond that blinding light. What secrets lay ahead, and would it lead her to her son or seal her own fate? The darkness whispered around her once more, daring her to step forward as the laughter crescendoed. The question loomed, would she lose herself in the keeper's realm, or was there a shred of salvation left? The blinding light beckoned, slicing through the heavy shroud of night, igniting Lisa's senses with a flicker of hope. But as she moved closer, the shadows swirled in furious protest, clawing at her heels like ravenous beasts. The keeper's howl merged with the laughter, a sinister harmony that threatened to pull her under. "Ben!" she shouted again, desperation fueling her voice. The flicker hung in the air, golden and tenuous, as if it were a wisp of hope caught in a net of despair. Lisa could see it dancing just out of reach, tainted by the shadows that roiled around her. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat. But what if Ben was out there? She couldn't afford to waver, not now. With a quick breath, she charged into the light, the warmth kissing her skin like a distant memory. The moment she entered, the clearing transformed. Shadows twisted before her, bending and collapsing under the glow. The trees surrounding her vibrated, gnarled branches reshaping into hands that clawed at the air. She felt her heart pound louder against her ribcage, like a drum announcing her arrival at a dance of death. "Join us," the children whispered, their faces pale and yearning. They flocked at the edge of her vision, beckoning with crooked fingers, their eyes wide with a hollow hunger. "Join us, no!" she cried out, clenching the book tightly. "I'm not one of you." But the words were barely a whisper, drowned in her own trembling resolve. The laughter twisted and turned, morphing into a cacophony that filled the night. The keeper stepped forward, monstrous and undefined, its essence flickering as if it were made of void and malice. "You think you can defy your fate?" it rasped, voice echoing with power. "You will embrace the darkness, just like them." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. "I'll do anything, just let him go." Her voice trembled, raw with fear. "You've made your choice," the keeper hissed, extending an elongated hand, the shadows thickening around it. As Lisa took a step back, the ground below her began to ripple, shifting like a restless sea. "Mom!" Ben's voice pierced through, clarity amidst the chaos. Lisa's heart leaped. "I'm over here." The flickering light pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating a figure in the distance. It was Ben, fragile, vulnerable, but undeniably him. "Get away from him!" she shouted, her voice fiery with maternal fury. She started to run, but the shadows licked at her heels, tugging and yanking as the ground transformed beneath her. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. The darkness clawed at her, as if it were alive, angry that she dared to defy its hold. Lisa's limbs felt heavy, each movement a struggle. "Mom!" Ben cried, and she glimpsed the tears streaming down his cheeks, a stark contrast to the darkness engulfing them. "I'm coming!" She pushed through the shadows, desperate to reach him, feeling their cold breath wash over her, wanting to drag her back into despair, Just a little further the keeper's laughter crescendoed again, filling her ears like a thunderstorm. It's useless. You will join them. You cannot save your son from the abyss. Shut up! She screamed, flinging the book forward as if it were a spear. The sigil glowed brightly, reacting against the keeper's presence. Shadows recoiled, snapping like a frayed string. Stop her! It bellowed, but the words broke apart in the air, swallowed by the eruption of light. Lisa didn't know where the energy surged from, but she harnessed it with a primal instinct. Ben! She roared, as the light enveloped her, growing warmer, solidifying against the chaos around her. The shadows pulled back, like a tide receding from the shore. Mom! Ben's voice came clearer now, desperation bubbling in his tone. A portal of shimmering radiance erupted before her, the way forward glowing with promise. But a chilling wind swept through the clearing, carrying the keeper's furious scream, a vow of retribution. Escape now, but you will return for what you owe. As the light engulfed them both, a shiver of dread coursed through Lisa. What had she truly unleashed? What price awaited them on the other side? With a final push, they surged into the light, and the shadows howled around them, promising echoes of their torment. As the world blurred into brightness, Lisa held tightly to Ben, uncertainty gnawing at her heart. They landed on cool grass, breathless, the darkness receding behind them. But had they truly escaped? Past the light, the keeper's voice murmured ominously, already testing the bounds of their newfound freedom. I'll see you soon. The air was fresh, but it carried a thickness that felt wrong. Lisa blinked against the sudden brightness, gripping Ben's hand tightly as if the world might slip away from her again. They stood in their yard, bathed in pale moonlight, the house looming behind them like a sentinel. It was eerily silent, not a breeze, not a rustle, only the heavy weight of uncertainty hung in the air. Mom? Ben's small voice broke through the stillness, trembling slightly. He looked up at her, eyes wide, searching for the reassurance she was struggling to provide. Yeah, it's okay, Ben. We're safe now. But even as she spoke, the shadows flickered at the edges of her mind, clawing at her confidence. What had they truly escaped? Had they traded one nightmare for another? With a deep breath, she led him toward the house, her heart racing. Doubts crept in as she approached the front door, and the familiar creaking sounds echoed in her ears. As she pushed the door open, the hinges groaned like a mournful whisper. The interior was dark, the familiar furnishings stark against the walls, but an unsettling aura lingered. The shadows seemed to cling, retreating only to loom near as if they were sentient, eager to engulf them again. Stay close, okay? She said, her voice steadier than she felt. She flipped on the kitchen light, and it flickered, casting long, peculiar shadows across the tiles. Just a blown bulb. She told herself to breathe. It was old and needed replacing. But the echoes of the keeper's laughter danced in her ears, taunting her. The book she had clutched was now heavy in her hands. She set it down on the kitchen table, feeling the energy pulsing softly from it. The sigil engraved on the cover pulsed like a heartbeat, and Lisa couldn't shake the feeling it was watching her, waiting. What is that? Ben asked, glancing at the book with curiosity and fear. It's nothing, she replied quickly, her stomach nodding. But the truth was, she felt an unsettling connection to it. That book had been their only hope and potentially their greatest curse. Ben wandered closer, drawn by its glow. Mom, it's glowing, get away from it! She snapped, fear rising like bile in her throat. Don't touch it! He recoiled, eyes wide with hurt. Lisa took a deep breath, struggling to regain her composure. I'm sorry. I just don't want this happening again. Suddenly, a sound broke through the silence, a soft knock echoing from the living room. Cold dread washed over her, icy fingers tracing her spine. It was loud, but the stillness made it reverberate in her ears like a gunshot. What was that? Ben whispered, clutching her arm tighter. I don't know. She swallowed hard and moved cautiously toward the sound, heart pounding in her chest. Each step felt heavy as her mind raced, memories of horror flooding back. As she reached the living room, she scanned the space the remains of their family life played against the shadows. Just a few hours ago, This had felt like home. Now, it felt like a cage, tainted by the darkness they had barely escaped. There it was again, a knock, deliberate and rhythmic, as if someone were counting the seconds. It came from the front door, the very entrance they had just stepped through. "Ben, get behind me," she ordered, voice steadying as she prepared herself for whatever awaited them. "Mom, I feel it again." Ben's voice trembled, and she could see it in his eyes, the fear, but also something else, something deeper. "It's okay. Just trust me." She stepped forward, her heart racing, hand gripped tightly around the doorknob, the knob cool and slick against her palm. When she pulled the door open, night air blasted in, cold and full of whispering shadows. But the shivering figure standing before her stole her breath. Out there in the stillness, the keeper smiled back, its smile stretching far too wide against the darkness. Behind it, shadows danced, twisting into the figures of hollow children, eyes empty yet glimmering with malicious delight. "Welcome back," it hissed, voice like nails scraping across glass, echoing between breaths. Lisa's world shrank as panic gripped her throat. "Mom!" Ben cried out as the darkness leapt forward, flinging hands toward them, and just like that, she realized this was only the beginning of their torment. The keeper hadn't just followed, it had come to collect. What was due from them would demand a price that would haunt their dreams. Lisa tightened her grip on Ben's hand, their future uncertain as the shadows lurked closer. "Run!" she yelled, but it felt like a fleeting thought, swallowed by the laughter that cascaded from the void beyond the door. What price would they truly pay for their escape? Would it be worth their lives and souls? With a burst of energy, Lisa yanked Ben back, slamming the door shut. The echoes from the keeper's laughter rattled in her mind like a storm, making her question if they were truly safe at all. Her heart raced, every thud matching the beat of terror slamming against her chest. "Mom, what was that?" Ben's voice quaked, tiny fists clenched at his sides as he pressed against her, seeking solace in the warmth of her panic. "Stay close," Lisa whispered, her voice barely breaking above the cacophony echoing in her ears. She fumbled for her phone, hands trembling as she swiped the screen. The flickering light illuminated the shadows grazing the corners of their home. But that dim glow felt fragile, like it could be extinguished with a breath. "Mom," Ben murmured again, his gaze darting to the edges, the inky voids that hugged the walls. "I know, honey. I know." She steeled herself, forcing her attention back to the book. Its glow pulsed now, more insistent, more alive. It beckoned like a siren's song, trying to reel her in, but she couldn't afford to indulge its call. "We should call someone," Ben suggested, teeth chattering slightly. "Yeah, maybe just stay here." In her mind, she battled the memory of the keeper's menacing smile. What would happen if they called for help? Would it draw more of that darkness? More of those hollow figures clawing to get inside their lives? She dialed, breath hitching as the rings echoed ominously in the silence. As she waited, the shadows outside the door began to morph and shift, swirling like a dark tornado just out of sight. Each ring felt like a countdown, an inevitability leading to chaos. "Hello?" His voice rang out warm, friendly, a stark contrast to the dread coiling in her stomach. "Help! We need help!" She stammered, the words racing from her lips as the shadows began to murmur, whispers creeping into her ears. "Ma'am," slow down, the voice on the other end said, but she couldn't. She felt as if the walls were closing in. "They're here. The keeper, it's back. We're in danger." She glanced nervously at Ben, whose trembling form seemed to fade into the shadows. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," but the phone slipped from her grasp, a chilling thud echoing against the tile as she turned. The kitchen light began to flicker and dim, as if it, too, was scared. The edges of the room darkened, shadows creeping forth like hands reaching out for her. "Mom!" Ben screamed, pointing. She turned just in time to see the door slowly creaking open, more force behind it than she could muster. It was the keeper, the malicious grin wide, eyes glistening with malevolent glee as it stepped closer, shadows enveloping it like a cloak. "Run!" Lisa yelled again, more desperate now. She lunged for Ben, grabbing him just as the figures of the hollow children came tumbling inside, their laughter chilling and infectious, spreading like a virus of fear throughout the house. "Mom! The book!" Ben shouted, barely able to pierce through the rising chaos. Lisa's gaze darted to the book, still glowing on the table. It throbbed with an energy she couldn't comprehend, a potential salvation or destruction hanging in the balance. Could it really help them? Before she could react, cold hands clasped around her ankles, pulling her down toward the floor, fingers like barbed wire cutting into her skin. "Help us," the hollow voices chanted, echoing through the air. Hope seemed a far-off star, flickering in the vast night. "Ben, hold on to me!" she screamed, wrenching her foot free and lunging toward the book, desperation fueling her instincts. It felt powerful, but what had it truly done? Ben clutched her tightly, shaking his head, fear making his tiny body tremble. The shadows worked their way around him, whispering insidious promises. "Help us, join us." What was this book? What did it really offer? As the keeper's grin widened, its sinister laughter intertwined with the shadows, Lisa had only one thought left: would the price of using the book save them or destroy everything they had fought to reclaim? The laughter grew louder, drowning out everything as the shadows lurked closer, waiting for their moment. In the darkness of that moment, all she knew was that time was running out. Next, she would have to confront the truth hidden within the pages, the cost of a bargain she might not survive. The moment Lisa's hand grasped the book, dark energy surged through her, as if the air itself held its breath. The room trembled with force, an intense magnetic pull between her and the glowing pages. The keeper leaned closer, eyes glinting in sadistic delight. "Bargain time!" it crooned, voice dripping with malice, each word slicing through her like a cold wind. The shadows writhed, hungry and eager, slowing, wrapping around her legs. "Mom, please!" Ben cried out, his little hands clutching her arm, desperately trying to pull her away. Yet Lisa felt the book's weight, solid and steady, draw her deeper. The glow became blinding, painting the room in unsettling shades of light and dark. What do you want?" Lisa shouted, trapped between dread and an inexplicable urge to open the book. The keeper cackled, the sound chilling her to her core. "Nothing more than a trade," it hissed, step by slow step, drawing nearer, shadows swirling around like a tempest. It gestured to Ben. "A life for a life." "No!" Lisa screamed, a primal fear clawing at her insides. She couldn't fathom the horror of losing her son. Tears pricked her eyes, blurring her vision. The shadows consolidated, sprawling like dark fingers, stretching toward Ben, whose small figure was trembling under the weight of an unseen dread. "Think, Lisa! Save him! Use the book!" whispered the shadows, their eerie chorus a hypnotic melody luring her thoughts away. The air felt charged with a sickly sweetness, the smell of decay wafting through the home, intertwining with her panic. "What do I have to do?" she pleaded, desperate to stem the tide of darkness creeping ever closer. "Just open it," the keeper grinned, teeth sharp and gleaming. "Release what is trapped within, just say the words." "Mom! Don't!" Ben's voice was barely a whisper, shaking with fear. The glow intensified, pulsing in time with her quickening heart. She realized they had to act, but to what end? One choice, and everything could shatter. "Help us!" The hollow children cried in unison, their voices writhing like snakes in the air. Each chant wrapped tighter around her, threatening yet tempting. Could they truly be saved? Her heart raced as she wrestled with the clamor of sorrows and sins. "Just a word, Lisa," the keeper taunted, its hands reaching out, fingers like twisted blades. Time slowed. She felt her breath shift, each inhale laced with dread and tension. "Open the book or fight?" The walls trembled as the shadows pressed hard against her, wanting to squeeze her until nothing was left. In that moment, Lisa made a decision. She yanked open the book, pages fluttering violently like trapped birds desperate for escape. A burst of energy exploded around them, a whirlwind of whispers surged forth, but within the chaos, one voice echoed louder than the rest. "Yours for the taking, Ben, hold my hand!" she cried, linking her fingers with his, feeling warmth radiate in the frost-tinged air. "Mom!" Ben's wide eyes met hers, disbelief dancing there, but he didn't. He let go. The moment felt suspended, teetering on the edge of an abyss. Shadows surged forward, but the light from the book swallowed them, a strange force pushing back, yet pulling them in all at once. "We're losing him!" the keeper shrieked, its grin faltering as cracks formed across its shadowy face, and the whispers spiraled into panic. "Together, we can fight it!" It was a gamble, a final desperate stand against the tide of darkness. But could love and raw courage withstand the keeper's malevolence? The vibrations of the angry shadows rattled her bones, threatening to splinter their fragile reality. "Say the words," the keeper hissed, pushing with all its might. As the room warped around them, crunching sounds of the keeper's frustration rang in her ears. To gamble with the lives of the innocent was unforgivable. "You want a life? Take my darkness instead." With Ben clinging desperately to her, she hurled the words into the swirling chaos. And everything erupted. The final moment before the inevitable dropped them into a chill of silent anticipation. Would it be enough? As the light blinded her, Lisa only thought what horror had she unleashed in her fight for survival? The truth of the bargain loomed like a specter, hinting at the unimaginable consequences to come. What if the cost was more than she could possibly bear? When the blinding light faded, the world felt different, almost like a heavy curtain had been drawn back. Lisa blinked, her vision slowly adjusting. She was no longer in the same room, the air thicker and colder. An oppressive silence engulfed them, a contrast to the manic chaos moments before. "Mom?" Ben's voice was small and shaky, as if he were afraid the shadows would hear him. Lisa turned, her heart drumming in her chest. They stood in a vast, dimly lit expanse, shadows angling sharply from every corner. The ground was a cracked, barren gray, devoid of comfort. An escape, she thought, was shallow relief, but at what cost? "Where are we?" she breathed, her eyes darting around for any sign of familiarity. "You said the words." A figure materialized from the gloom, a sneer twisting its lips. It was the keeper, but it seemed more rooted here, a part of the shadows around them. "Welcome to your true bargain." With that, the darkness surged. Lisa's breath hitched. It wasn't just shadows anymore. Forms twisted from the void, children, their eyes hollow, bodies frail as if the very light of life had ebbed away. Their mouths opened, but no sound emerged, only a burning anguish hung in the air. "Ben," Lisa whispered, fear gripping her throat. It felt wrong. Something deep within told her that this was a realm forged from pain, each child a wailing whisper of loss and despair. Surely there was something they could do, some way to escape this nightmare. But the chilling gaze of the keeper pinned her with ferocity. "You unleashed them," it hissed, swirling around them. "Their lives, their darkness, they belong to you now." Her mind raced, the implications crashing in like an unexpected wave. "No! I saved my son!" The conviction in her words faltered as she felt the weight of their reality settle on her fragile shoulders. The children were not just trapped souls. They were the price of her choice, echoes of the past, living embodiments of lost hope. Each face, pinched in sorrow, reflected what could have been, what might still be. Frantic, she turned to Ben. "We have to go back. We can't stay here." But Ben stood motionless, his eyes wide and leaking tears, as if he were seeing them. "Mom, look!" Before her sinking heart could register his words, he pointed toward the keeper, which began to swell in size, shadows wrapping around it like a cloak sewn with fear. "Your son is drawn to them," the keeper laughed, each note cold as a winter grave. "How touching! But you should know, once the doorway opens, it can never simply close again." Each syllable punched deep. She fought the rising dread, desperation clawing at her. "Ben, no! Come back!" But it was too late. The tether he shared with those lost souls seemed stronger than the bond between mother and son. The children, shadows stretched stark against the muted backdrop, began to close in, reaching for him with skeletal hands. With raw terror fueling her, Lisa lunged forward, grasping Ben's arm. "We need to find the light. We can fight this." Racing through the dark expanse with him at her side, the shadows writhed, grasping at their heels as a cacophony of whispers and cries enveloped them, louder now, the urgency creeping into a frenzied pitch. Lisa weaved around the children, her heart pounding, fear turning to raw determination. "Enough!" she shouted. "You can't have us!" But the darker tendrils of the keeper loomed closer, snaking around her legs like a vice. The laughter echoed, burrowing into her mind, taunting her to surrender. Ben pulled free, and as he did, the shadows recoiled for an instant, revealing the path. She could barely breathe, the panic twisting tightly in her chest. With a surge of willpower, Lisa shouted into the suffocating darkness, "Ben! Trust me!" As the room erupted into disarray once more, the children hesitated, their mournful gazes meeting hers. She had awakened something, perhaps a spark of hope laced with despair, but enough to break free. "Come on!" she yelled again, racing down the only way that felt right, a shuddering path framed by brilliance and shadows. But could they truly escape the nightmare? Just as a surge of light flickered in the distance, an icy grip plunged through the chaos. The keeper's rumbling voice thundered behind them, "You cannot flee what you have unleashed." The last exchange between moments was punctuated by the ground splitting open, a fissure forming beneath them, laced with shadows that promised eternal darkness. As they jumped, heart rates sinking in frantic beats, a question remained: would they fall into the abyss or find a way back to the light? The raw urgency of the chase pushed them forward, but inside, dread coiled tightly around her heart. What awaited them on the other side? In the blinding chaos, time lost meaning. As Lisa yanked Ben along, they plunged deeper into the unknown. The luminous path shimmered just ahead, pulsating like a heartbeat, promising salvation. She could hear the keeper's wrathful shrieks resonating behind them, each growl wrapped in layers of torment. But they couldn't stop now, they couldn't turn back. It was too late. "Mom!" Ben's voice quavered, fear darting across his face. As they ran, the shadows surged, swarming like a living entity seeking to consume every inch of them. Each breath Lisa took felt colder than the last, her heart pounding as she squeezed Ben's hand tighter. "Hold on!" The path before them lit with possibilities: love, safety, survival, even peace. They broke through a final curtain of light, and suddenly everything shifted. They landed with a soft thud in a serene backyard, lush and vibrant, yet hauntingly familiar. The air felt fresh, and for a fleeting moment, warmth wrapped around them like a beloved memory. But lingering beneath that warmth, shadows shivered, whispering taunts at the back of her mind. "Is this home?" Ben asked, glancing around with wide, hopeful eyes. The stars twinkled above, spraying brilliance across the night sky, yet something trembled under the surface. "Yeah, it's home," but as the shadows flickered behind them, uncertainty gnawed at Lisa's heart. Could this be a sanctuary or a trap? Suddenly, the laughter erupted, a cruel, haunting chorus that erupted from the depths of the night, tainting the air with dread, drawing closer. The keeper's presence loomed just beyond the edge of the yard, its grotesque figure twisted with shadows, eyes glittering with dark promises. "You thought you could flee," it mocked, voice low and venomous. "You brought your son here to me." Panic seized Lisa. This was how it was supposed to end, not again. The memories of the children, their hollow eyes, echoed in her thoughts, a painful reminder of what was at stake. "You can't have him!" she shouted, echoing the primal promise of a mother's love. "We will fight you!" "Fight?" The keeper's laugh chilled her core, a sound that clawed at the fabric of her resolve. "You've already lost. The price you owe is steep, and now you stand at the edge of the abyss." The ground trembled, the shadows twisting eagerly beneath the starlit sky. Lisa felt the walls of her heart tighten, a lump forming in her throat. "No! We're stronger than the darkness." She took a step forward, desperation igniting a flame within her as she held Ben close. "Remember, Ben, love is the light that can conquer anything. We're not alone." As if responding, an ethereal glow emanated from the book that had begun to pulse steadily in her pocket. "Mom, the book!" Ben exclaimed, drawing her attention. "Use it!" With trembling hands, Lisa pulled it from her pocket. It glimmered under the moonlight, resonating with power and potential, a beacon against the encroaching shadows. But the keeper lunged forward, wrapping sinister darkness around them, clawing desperately to reach her. You think that trinket will save you? Lisa locked eyes with Ben, finding strength in his gaze. Together, we'll say the words. She opened the book, feeling its energy surge. Pages fluttered wildly, drawing them into an ancient chorus, vibrating with every breath they took. Bind the keeper! They shouted, reciting the incantation that felt primal as the air crackled with energy, shadows writhing in agony against the force growing within them. We claim light and love. The darkness cannot hold us. Light exploded outward, a brilliant flash that pushed the shadows back. The keeper roared, a sound that split the night, a mix of frustration and rage that echoed eerily around them. Flickers of brilliant illumination erupted with every fervent word, engulfing the children's spirits that surged alongside their shared determination. The shadows twisted and contorted, beginning to unravel as the keeper's hold weakened. No! This cannot happen! It howled, thrashing against the brilliant light beaming forth from their hearts. With one final push, Lisa spread her arms, shouting into the tumultuous night. You don't own us! We are free! The blinding energy shot outward, fracturing reality, fusing light with shadows until they screamed for mercy, and just like that, it shattered. Darkness exploded, fragments peeling away like layers of a rotten fruit, collapsing under the weight of love's light. The laughter faded, the shadows dissolving into the ether, freeing the lost children caught in the keeper's grasp. The echoes of their cries faded, transforming into soft, soothing whispers of gratitude that danced around them like butterflies. Lisa and Ben gasped as they stood alone, the world calm and still again. No longer chased by ghosts and shadows, only the quiet melody of the night remained a distant reminder of what they had faced. Mom, we did it! Ben cried, looking up with awe, flushed with wonder and relief. Yeah, we did. A sense of triumph washed over Lisa. Yet somewhere in her heart, a sliver of sadness remained, a memory of choices made and lives exchanged. She promised to honor those lost who hadn't escaped the grasp of darkness. She took Ben's small hand, determination renewed within. We'll keep the light alive, together forever. As they stepped back into their home, the warmth of light bathed them in comfort, shadows retreating into memory. While a part of her always would fear the darkness lurking just beyond sight, they had each other, and that was the light that could withstand any night. As they closed the front door, cold winds whispered outside, but inside, they built a new life filled with love, hope, and light, a home that could always conquer shadow. Yet deep within the heart of night, the stillness echoed with a shadowy promise. The keeper's laughter lingered somewhere far away, a reminder that choices have consequences, and darkness, while vanquished for now, would always seek a return. So remember, dear friends, to keep your light close, to never let the shadows win. Hold on tight to what you love. If you found this journey as intense as I did, you need to subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next heart-pounding adventure. Smash that like button to help push this story further. You know it makes a difference for all of us. And I want to see you flood the comments section with your reactions. Share your thoughts and theories. What would you have done if you were in Lisa's shoes? Don't sleep on this. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Thank you for awakening their courage in the face of the dark. Together, we can keep the light alive.